Hey everybody, I wanted to share a quick encouraging word with you guys from the story that comes out of Luke chapter 14 verse 21 is where we'll pick it up. We see a few verses before this, the servant, this is Jesus telling this beautiful parable about a servant going out on behalf of his master to tell everybody that the party, the dinner, the feast is now ready. So the servant runs out and he's got this list with him of VIP members, and so he goes up to these guys and he tells every single one of them, hey, come, the master has sent me to tell you that the dinner is now ready, the feast, the party's now ready. You gotta come quickly. And every single one of them began to make excuses. They began to say why they couldn't come. One guy says, man, I just bought a beautiful piece of land. I gotta go and see it. Another guy says, well, I bought 5 yoke of oxen. I gotta go test them out. The third guy, he says, listen, the first 2 guys, their excuses were pretty bad. They were pretty lame if you ask me, but my excuse is the best. Because out of the Mosaic law, I have a right to focus on my marriage, and I just got married and I got to go home and take care of my wife. Now, of course, the scholars say that these excuses were not only pathetic, but they were really insulting. Because if you think about it just for a moment, nobody buys a piece of land without first going to see it. Nobody buys 5 yoke of oxen before they test them. Certainly you wouldn't buy a car without first test driving it, right? So these guys are just making excuses. Of course, the third guy, who thought he had the best excuse, says, you know, about just being married. He just got married, he's got to go take care of his wife. But the reality is, don't you want your marriage to flourish and grow in the house of God? Anyway, these guys had better things to do, at least so they thought. So the servant goes back to the master and he tells the master all the things that had taken place. He gives the master the report. And the master becomes angry. It actually is translated, that word angry is translated enraged. So the master looks at the servant and he says to the servant, here's what I want you to do. He says, I want you to go out into the streets, into the lanes of the city. And he begins to name the people that he wants the servant to go after. I want you to go after the poor, the maimed, the lame, the blind. If you would allow me just a little bit of leeway to add a few more, I want you to go after the broken, the hurting, the forgotten, those entrapped in sin, the addicted. I want you to go after the paralytic. I want you to go after the prostitute. I want you to go after those who have no hope, those filled with despair. And I want you to invite them to my house. I want you to tell everybody that they're welcomed into my house, that there's a place at my table for them. So the servant goes out. He brings everybody he possibly can back to the master's house. And he comes back full of rejoicing. He's filled with excitement. And he says, Master, look, it's done as you've commanded. All these people, they're here. They're here to take place in the dinner. They're here to take place in the feast. You know, they came as they are. They didn't have to get dressed up. They didn't have to change their clothes. They didn't have to put on their makeup. They didn't have to put on their Sunday best. They just came. Dirty, wretched, rugged. They came just as they are. So the master high-fives the servant and says, well done, good job. But the servant, in the midst of all this, makes this beautiful observation. He says, Master, there's still room. Verse 22, there's still room in your house. So the master looks at the servant. He says, hey, listen, I want you to do one more thing. I want you to go out one more time. I want you to go into the lanes of the city. I want you to go into the highways and the byways, the highways and hedges. And I want you to tell everybody you can find, just one more time, go tell everyone you can that they're welcomed into my house. This phrase here, highways and hedges, means basically the secret places. The places nobody else wants to go. I want you to tell everyone that everyone else has forgotten about and that the world has written off and the church hasn't been able to get a hold of. I want you to tell them that they're welcomed into my house. And then the master says, for one reason and one reason only, so that my house may be filled. You know, this hit me. It hit me very hard because I thought to myself, how many of us are trying to build our own kingdoms, our own ministries? We're doing everything that we possibly can to build our own kingdoms, our own businesses, our own ministries, our own things, the things that we're involved in. We're trying to build everything on our own. But God says, I want you to build my house. I want you to build my kingdom. So today, let's refocus our life. Let's refocus our vision. Let's refocus what God has called us to do. And let's build His kingdom. Let's be like that faithful servant. Let's be God's faithful servants. And let's go and build His house. Let's go build His kingdom. Hey, we love you. We bless you. We're praying for you. Today and every day, let's focus on His house. God bless you.